listening to the Marketing Happy Hour podcast, where we discuss career and industry insights with our peers in marketing.
We're here to talk about it all, like the ups and downs of working in social media,
how to build authentic relationships in the influencer and PR space,
managing a 9-to-5 and a side hustle at the same time,
how to be productive in your life and career without losing your sanity, and more.
Ultimately, we're here to build a community with you because we're all trying to navigate the world of marketing together.
Are you ready? Grab your favorite drink and join your hosts, Cassie and Erica, for this week's episode.
Erica, it's just the two of us again. How are you doing today?
I know, but I kind of love it. I feel like when we do these episodes together, we get our like one-on-one time. And this is kind of how we started Marketing Happy Hour anyway, is we just like sat down and always had these conversations with each other. So it's really fun to do that. But I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm great. We were just talking off record. I'm fresh off a facial this morning. So I'm feeling very zen and relaxed, and the skin is feeling great. So I cannot complain this morning.
I love that. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I have to know, since you're wearing the sweatshirt, what is in your glass right now?
Yeah, I am wearing an Olipop sweatshirt right now. I know we're no video right now, but it is very comfortable. So shout out to Izzy for sending that over to us.
Love it.
But with that, I have to stay on brand, and I'm sipping on a grape Olipop today. So I love Olipop, and so excited I can kind of flex my Olipop love for everyone else. But what about you, Erica? What do you have in your glass?
Oh my gosh, I love that. And I might have to go grab an Olipop after this recording because I didn't even think about it, but I am also wearing that sweatshirt.
Yeah.
So, but I have and I actually just looked up how to pronounce it. It's an Australian brand, I guess, or it's inspired by an Australian bird or something like that.
Oh.
But it's a non-alcoholic brand called Layas, which is
Okay.
spelled Lyre''. And I've actually seen it on a lot of menus. It's a lot of times they're using their non-alcoholic spirits in some mocktails that might be on a menu somewhere. But I ordered online, which is something I don't normally do. I don't know that I've ordered like any like beverages or food really online. But I was like, I need something. And I love a Negroni. If you've listened to any of our episodes, you know that's my favorite cocktail. And so I was looking for like a non-alcoholic version that I can really sip on when we're doing these recordings. And so I got all of the ingredients to make their non-alcoholic Negroni, and it's actually pretty good. I've had a few non-alcoholic Negronis that are like pre-made from like other brands, and they're not so great. So highly recommend if you're looking for that, if you love that cocktail as well.
Okay, I am definitely going to have to check this out. And I see they sell on Amazon, which is my love language if a brand is on there. So I will check this out. I've not heard of them, but I love this idea of non-alcoholic cocktails and drinks. And there's so many brands making such good ones. So I'm always a fan of that. That's awesome. Okay, so we are talking about today one of our favorite topics, I would say, one of our favorites, and that is podcasting. And of course, we have a podcast. Erica, you and I have dabbled in lots of podcasts outside of this show as well, and gotten to be a part of many different shows and different production styles and different hosting styles and content. And so we're really taking all of our knowledge and bringing that forward here in this episode. And so specifically, we're going to talk about 4 different tools, tricks, strategies for podcasting. And this can be, I would say, whether you have already launched a show or you're thinking of launching a show, something that you can take a little bit of the tips from each of these sections and hopefully apply to your new launch or your already launched podcast. So a quick little run through what exactly we're going to talk about in those 4 points. So number 1, podcasting as a marketing tool. So thinking about how does the podcast play a part in your overall marketing funnel, driving leads to your business, using it as a way to educate and add value to consumers? So, Erica's going to walk us through that. Number two, tips for building an effective show. So, whether or not you have already launched your show, just how do you kind of build the structure and plan and foundation for that show in order to use it as a viable marketing tool? And then number three, integrating your podcast into your marketing funnel. So going a little bit deeper on how do you use the content to drive people to convert? How do you use calls to action in your podcast? How do you use things in your show notes to drive clicks to a website and things like that? And then last but not least, we'll talk about strategies for growing your show. So once you're launched, how do you drive new people, new listenership, new community members to your show? So we'll talk all about that. But Erica has our first point. So, Erica, I'll let you take it away.
Fantastic. Okay, well, I wanted to start off by just mentioning a few stats. Apparently, the average American listens to 8 podcast episodes every week, which is over one a day. So you're already, if you're on their, radar, you're already reaching that person every single week. The second stat I wanted to put out there is that the podcast industry is currently worth $23.56 billion. That's from online resource Demand Sage. So there's a lot of opportunity. There's already a ton of shows out there, but if you've heard us talk about podcasting in the past, you know that we have found stats and research that reflects that most podcasts don't actually make it past 10 episodes. So while there might be a ton of seemingly competition out there, there is still room to break through and kind of speak to a specific niche and your specific audience in a unique way. One of the reasons why we love podcasting compared with other marketing mediums is that it's such an intimate, long form platform. Think about it, that people are sitting down to listen to your show for like 45 minutes. You don't get that kind of airtime anywhere else. If you're on social, people are scrolling past your content on there so quickly. Maybe they're throwing you a like, but they are not engaging for 45 minutes with your social media post. The only other thing I can think of where they might be engaging that long would be YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
But you can also put your podcast on YouTube. So there you go. But it is seriously the best way to connect one-on-one with your community and grow your network. And so if you are listening right now and you have fallen away, or you're just like doing something else, come back here right now and listen to me really quickly, because I'm going to tell you something. The single most valuable thing that you can do for your brand or your business in 2024 and beyond is grow your community. So podcasting, and it's an amazing way to do that. And it will help you grow your network, establish your thought leadership. It'll help you grow your personal brand. And I know thought leadership, personal brand, those are big buzzwords right now, and we talk about them a lot on the show, but it is so important if you are trying to grow your brand or business to then step in and have those direct lines of communication with your consumer. So I love podcasting for that reason. It's a chance to engage your audience for that long period of time. You can build relationships directly with your listeners. You can take their feedback and implement it in future episodes. You can talk directly to them and say, I've heard that you are experiencing this issue in your business. Let me help you and let me share my expertise and speak directly to the problem that you're having. And here are some, ways that you can interact with me off of this podcast where I can serve you, and then it can understand where they can find you and go see all the things that you're up to from there. And you can build lasting trust and authority. Another thing that's really helpful with podcasting is it is a valuable opportunity to network and the best excuse to reach out to people online. that you may not otherwise have an avenue to. So say that you admire somebody out there and you are a podcaster that has episodes where you're interviewing guests. You can reach out to those people and have those one-on-one conversations and ask questions with them that otherwise you may never get to ask them because you don't have that direct line of communication with them. You can also leverage your podcast to uh, grow your network even in real life with events. You can get press passes, which is crazy, to events and conferences that
Mhm.
otherwise maybe you wouldn't have access to. And you can utilize those opportunities to grow your network and ultimately grow your community and your business as a whole. So we love podcasting, if you can't tell. But those are just like the reasons why it's such a valuable like avenue to go down.
Mhm. Yeah, couldn't agree more. Yeah, I'm such a huge fan and it's so silly, but like once you start podcasting and once you start seeing like what is possible with podcasting, like you'll get it. Trust me. I know we sound like just
Yeah.
crazy,
Well,
like super fans of it, but it's so good.
no, I know. And we also say this on the show if you've listened. We never, ever set out to be podcasters. Cassie and I
Mm-mm.
are not ones to be getting in front of the camera and like
Nope.
talking about, ourselves or like trying to be authorities in a certain space. But we have found true value and true community through doing this podcast. And we want to help everybody have that same community growth and that connection because I think we're all looking for that,
Mhm.
whether or not are thinking about having a podcast or like if you could even have a podcast or be good at it or whatever. We we tell everyone not to go listen to our first episode because honestly it was horrible, but we've grown and I feel like our episodes are getting better and we are 3 years into this. But what we like to do is just have these conversations that otherwise maybe we wouldn't be having and impact our community with actionable tips they can take and improve their careers with. So it's been amazing. But Cassie, I want you to walk us through tips for building an effective show because this is something that over our past few years, I want to say like 6-ish years, we've been doing work in the podcasting space. And I want to hear what our compiled knowledge is around this area because I think there's a lot of, articles out there. There's a lot of different information out there that you could comb through, but I want to know what our findings have been, Cass.
Yeah, yeah. So this area I would say is like one of the biggest things besides like how does this fit into my full marketing plan, which I know you'll get into here in a minute, Erica, but like how do I get started? How do I do this? How do I record? How long do I record for? What do I talk about? That kind of thing. Who am I talking to? Those are some of the biggest questions I would say we get on a regular basis. And quick teaser, we do have an amazing document that literally walks you through in depth all of these different steps, but I'm going to give you a quick tease of that document. So if you're taking notes, get out your pen and paper because I'm going to tell you exactly some of the main areas to consider when you are either launching your show for the first time and kind of doing the brainstorm and planning around it, or if you have a show but you feel like you're kind of unclear of your format, if it's structured the right way, if you're speaking to the right people, etc. These are some different questions or areas that you can kind of go through and consider and write out some notes for just to kind of reframe your show. So, some of the key elements of creating a successful podcast. Number one is making sure you define your why. So, what is the purpose of your show? Is it to drive people to a specific product, to your business? Is it to educate? Is it to entertain? It can be a number of those things, but just really understanding why you're doing what you're doing. And the biggest thing we found that has really kept fueling us, even if hardships come up with our show or we get burnt out, is just the people that we're able to impact and support and help. And so that keeping that why as our front focus has helped us to keep going, even if production gets mundane, etc. And so always having that number one written down, keep that close to your heart is super important. On top of that, not only defining why you're doing what you're doing, but who are you doing it for? So really identifying your target audience. And this is similar to just general marketing strategy 101 is identifying who are they, gender, age, where are they at in their life? What are they looking for? What problems are they looking to solve in their lives or in their career? And then just literally identifying that and having that handy because a lot of your content is going to come from that. Next, after that, is choosing the right format. So, will you do video or audio? If you're doing video, you can do both and have your podcast available on both video and audio platforms. And video is such a powerful tool. So, highly recommend doing that if you have the production capabilities. The next question to ask yourself is how often am I going to post? We definitely recommend weekly if you can swing it. But if it is every other week, as long as it's consistent and you have a good cadence, that's the most important thing. And then just letting your audience know how often you'll be posting so they can expect that. The next point is will you have guests or is it going to be a monologue show? Is it a little bit of both? We just launched a really awesome show with Lindsay, Good Press Pod, and she does a really good job at kind of marrying both. She does fantastic monologue episodes. And so if you're interested in kind of how that sounds, it's definitely a good podcast to listen to. But you can do both. And if you have two hosts, you can do episodes kind of like this, where it's just the hosts interacting with each other, talking on a topic, and then you bring in a guest or a thought leader to speak on a specific topic where necessary. The next thing to think about is just how will you develop engaging content? So the biggest thing we recommend is always having at least some sort of outline with objectives for an episode. And so you kind of know the main points you want to hit, the takeaways for the listener to take away from that episode, and then closing out with some sort of call to action. So what do you want them to do with that information? And the reason we recommend outlines is just so you can kind of stay on track, ensure that your listeners are always getting value out of your content. But we don't necessarily recommend on that writing out scripts. Early on, if that's helpful to you, totally do it. But the biggest thing with podcasting is making it feel as conversational and organic as possible, like someone is literally sitting at a dinner table with you having a conversation. So it's a good marriage between structure and non structure. The next point here is having a clear call to action. So getting people off the platform after they listen, which again, Erica's going to talk a little bit more about here in a minute. And then the biggest thing too to think about when you are speaking to your listener, I always recommend speaking one to one. So think of it as there's only one listener listening to your show, and you address them as you versus you guys. And the reason for that is it really builds that direct connection with each individual listener and makes sure that they feel like you are speaking directly to them, you're building that relationship, etc. So next kind of segment I want to talk about here is best practices for production, including all audio quality, episode length, etc. And so there's a lot of great tools out there available for editing. Descript is one we recommend. You can even use iMovie if you have a Mac computer. And then you're going to have a host for your show. And so that host is kind of the main hub where you'll upload and schedule episodes. We use Spotify for podcasters. It works great, but there's a number of them out there. And so just doing your research and seeing what works best for you. And then another consideration is audio quality, which is so incredibly important because if you've ever listened to music where it's kind of crunchy, crispy, the connection is cutting up, audio quality is a big deal and really can sometimes make a listener consider whether or not they want to continue listening to your show. And inside of our podcast doc, we have some really great mic recommendations there that range from a number of different price levels. And then episode length. So we have found personally that around 20, anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes is usually a good length. It keeps listeners engaged. And there's some ways to look at your retention data in order to kind of consider when that drop off is starting to happen and how long your episodes should be going. Last segment here I want to talk about really quickly is just tips for optimizing your podcast for discoverability on podcast platforms. So there's quite a few things you can do here, but kind of similar to social media or your website, these podcast platforms work on keywords. So a lot of times listeners will go into Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and they'll search words for content that they're looking for. So, for example, if someone is looking for social media podcast or how to build an influencer strategy or whatever, having relevant keywords in your titles and your descriptions around the